So as we said earlier that the project management body of knowledge, the PMBOK guide, is globally recognized standards for project management practices, which is published by the Project Management Institute, PMI. And this video will have in more depth session about the key differences between the 6th edition and the 7th edition PMBOK guide. So the 6th edition was released on 2017, while the 7th edition was published in 2021. There are several key differences between these two editions in terms of its structure, focus, and content. And here is an overview of the major distinctions or key differences. The first difference is the structure and the framework. The PMBOK Guide 6th edition follows a process-based approach, organizing project management knowledge into process groups such as the initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and finally closing. And knowledge areas such as scope management, time management, cost management, etc. It provides a detailed description of the processes, tools, and techniques for each of these areas. On the other hand, PMBOK's 7th edition shifts focus from processes to principle-based approach. It introduces 12 principles that we are gonna discover in detail that guides the project management practices, moving away from the rigid process models. The 7th edition also incorporates a system thinking approach, highlighting how projects interact with the broader organization environment. The next key difference here is the project lifecycle and processes. The PMBOK Guide 6th edition, the project lifecycle is defined through a series of phases with corresponding processes in each of the knowledge areas. The processes are organized into 5 main groups, and each process belongs to one or more knowledge area. On the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, the 7th edition eliminates the detailed process groups and knowledge areas. Instead, it focuses on value delivery, emphasizing the projects deliver outcomes and delivers a value, and ensuring that focusing on the benefits rather than just completing an individual tasks and outputs. The focus on the project outcomes also about the stakeholder engagement and delivering a value to the organization by end of the project. The next difference here is the guidance on tailoring. So the PMBOK 6th edition, the concept of tailoring or customizing processes and practices based on project needs is briefly mentioned, but isn't significant focus. However, on the PMBOK 7th edition, tailoring is given much more emphasis. And there is a specific guidance on how project managers should tailor practices, tools, and processes to the needs of their individual projects. It acknowledges that there is no one size fits all approach to the project management. Also, a key focus here about the agile and hybrid approaches. The 6th edition primarily focuses on traditional or predictive project management approaches, which is waterfall, with some references to agile practices and the context of hybrid project management. On the other hand, PMBOK 7th edition significantly enhances its focus on agile and hybrid project management approaches. It integrates agile concepts and practices through the guide, acknowledging that projects today often require a mix of predictive and adaptive methodologies. There are chapters which is mainly dedicated to agile principles and practices alongside with traditional ones. Also, a key difference here is the performance domain versus knowledge areas. In the sixth edition, the knowledge areas such as the scope, time, cost, risk, in the sixth edition are used to organize processes and practices. These areas offer a deep dive into a specific aspect of project management. However, in the seventh edition, the seventh edition introduces performance domains instead of knowledge areas. And these performance domains covers the stakeholder performance, team performance, project performance, etc. The seventh edition focuses on desired outcomes and capabilities needed in the project rather than a specific task or a process. This allows more flexibility and adaptability in applying project management practices. A very important difference here is the tools and techniques. The seventh or the sixth edition provides a detailed list of tools and techniques for each of the processes, explaining how they should be applied to different aspects of the project. While the seventh edition emphasizes the shift away from the perspective, tools, and techniques, which is highlighted heavily on the sixth edition. Instead, it provides a general guidance and emphasizes the outcomes and value. The seventh edition acknowledges that tools and techniques should be chosen based on the project specific context and need. Emphasizing on value delivery and system thinking, the sixth edition PMBOK guide has a strong focus on delivering outputs, which are the deliverables, such as the finished tasks or products or services within time, cost, and scope constraints. I don't want to say that it does not focus on the value, but it hasn't highlighted heavily on the value of these deliverables or outputs. On the other hand, the PMBOK 7th edition places more emphasizes on the value delivery or delivering a value to the stakeholder both directly and indirectly. It also highlights the system thinking, recognizing that projects should not be only viewed in isolation but as part of a larger organizational and environmental context. It emphasizes the outcome over outputs and the sustainability of these outcomes over time. In terms of language and terminology, the sixth, the sixth edition has, let's say, a more process-oriented language and terminologies, which is reflecting its focus on the process groups and knowledge areas, such as terms like the input, tools, and techniques, and the outputs as deliverables are regularly used on through the guide of the sixth edition. However, on the seventh edition, the language in the seventh edition is more flexible and broad instead of focusing on detailed process description. It uses terms like principle, performance domains, and value delivery to convey the guide border approach to project management. Now let's talk about the standardization versus customization. The sixth edition tends to be more prescriptive, providing a clear guidelines, processes, and tools that project managers can follow to ensure the consistency across different projects. However, in the seventh edition, acknowledges that each project is unique and it requires different approaches, which is reflected in the emphasis on tailoring and flexibility. It encourages project managers to adapt practices to fit the needs of their specific project organizations and environments. Finally, here are the key differences and the summary of all what we have discussed on this video from different aspects between the sixth edition and the seventh edition, covering different aspects such as the approach, the project life cycle, the use of agile and hybrid, the knowledge areas, tools and techniques, and the principles based aspect. To summarize this, let's say that the 7th edition PMBOK guide represent a shift towards more flexible and value-driven and adaptable approach, while the 6th edition remains grounded in more structured, process-based model. This evolution reflects the increasing need for project managers to be more flexible and to respond and to be more responsive in today's complex dynamic project environments.